Hello and welcome into Sorare with Laird. I'm Andrew Laird. You can find me as Lairdinho on Sorare. Talking today about the best classic cards to play in-season competitions. This topic was so exciting for someone that I actually have a guest. And I'm really excited to have him on. Before I bring him on, and part of what I'm about to say has nothing to do with him, but there's a bit of a coincidence anyway. But today's video is open to all because it's sponsored by MFL, the Metaverse Football League. Season 6 coming to an end. I've got some teams that are near the top of where I need them to be. But man, we're going to need some miracles. But anyway, if you're interested in joining MFL, there's a link in the description of this video. You get a free common player after you spend at least $25 from the market. I have a blast with this game. It's the best football management game I've ever played. And I say that as somebody who has never played another one, but I love it and I keep playing. Speaking of MFL, even though we're not talking about MFL today, everyone, please take a minute and welcome Quinny. My man.
Yo.
What's up?
It's all up, I think, at the moment, isn't it? Everything's up in the air. The hills are alive with the sound of clicks.
That's exactly what it is. Thank you, everybody, for coming in. Agent Cooper, Carlos, and Stefan on the podium. Congratulations to you three. Agent Cooper said, I don't know anything about dominating SO5, but the best way to dominate the live stream podiums is to get in there 3 hours early, which is definitely always a good thing. My dark horse classic card tip for next year is João Felix. If only that could be the case. Fraxy, what's up? Ryan Walter, the one that scores the most points and has level 10. Great show. See you tomorrow. Ryan is very good at just giving away everything right away. Philly Dilly, what's up? Not sure who the best card is, but pretty sure it's not on the U.S. men's national team. Harsh, but fair. Thomas, what's up? The formula is simple. Play for Chicago Fire. Be ineffective. Go to Europe. Be amazing. Shout out Jordan Shaqiri. Hatling in, what's up? I'm trying to see if there's anyone else new. Palma, what's up? Pico, Surface to Air, Missile. Kieran, Mikey Baston, what's up? Picking up tardies like the Sergio Ramos red. My bad on that. Dobbsy, City Keen, Rico Mon. Oh, look at this. Is this the Kimmich show? Maybe we'll talk about him. Graham, DHR79. I'm not familiar with that name, so what's up? Ricardo, what's up, Hoop? Sorare Inside's treating you well. JPS added 10 pounds into the Sorare 26 pot so far today, aiming for 20 pounds today. Now tell me which classics to go buy with it. For those of you who are unaware, JPS gave himself a bit of a challenge that he will put in 10 pounds into his Sorare 26 spending pot for every 10,000 steps he takes in a day.
Solid. Everybody
wins. Sean Kennedy, what's up? Germ, I think I got Graham already. JT Chells. Yeah, Quinny, you been out in the sun? You look so healthy.
Scotland is just great right now. Scotland in good weather is the place to be. Make no mistake about it. And yeah, I've been out all day. I said when I messaged you, literally just in the door. So I've been out in it all day. It's been a good one. We had like a week of bad weather, but it's been nice enough for the last, like, let's say 10 weeks. So I've been outside a lot, you know. So
I just feel more alive when I spend more time outside. That's all it is. Simple as that.
For the most part. Aye.
Don Q, what's up? Dominic, Jow. That's right. Quinny surprise. Always a win. Always a win. All right. Lionel, probably not Messi, but you never know. Catching a live one after a long time. Welcome back. Thank you for coming. Quinny, the topic for today, and I think I skipped a bunch of comments about the topic anyway, but the way that I was trying to think of this was not so much like what are the best cards on the platform or who the best players are, but as I'm trying to think of a strategy for Sorare 26, particularly in season. My thought was what classic card should I get to like save myself spending so much for the stars, and which cards and I was looking at the single leagues to start, even though I'm a contender boy at heart, but I was looking at the single leagues, but like what classic cards and players are the ones that you want as a classic that you can probably get for 25% of the price of an in-season, maybe less, and try to make a list of like what those guys are and then figure out which competitions I want to play. I feel like I should do the opposite, but I've started this process. And so now I'm going down that road.
Yeah. So do you put the competition before the player, or do you put the player before the competition? That's a fun. I never really thought of it in that sense. I've just kind of kept it alongside where I've kind of been already. But no, that's a very good way of thinking about it, actually, because like I know from last year, just as an entire entity, shopping in La Liga was quite limiting. Like there wasn't, nothing randomly happened really. Where you're like, oh, well, maybe there's a few guys out of the ordinary. Like the Jaureguezer guy or whatever you call him at Bilbao in midfield jumps to mind, and there was one or two guys maybe. But yeah, like if you pick the competition first, you do limit what could be a good buy, rather than looking for the best buy and then balancing it off of the competition. So you can maybe get a different top three of what's available in the market versus if you say, look at La Liga and who's the best in La Liga top three, they might not even make your top 10 of what's on the market, Yeah, I never thought about that. That's a very interesting crossroads. And you just
The reason,
what way first?
so the reason why I did this is because I think I made a giant mistake. And I'm trying to talk myself either into the mistake or out of it. And I'm not sure which way to go yet. But so I bought a Jude Bellingham 2 months ago. And I knew about the surgery that he was going to have after the Club World Cup. And so he's going to miss. My guess is he doesn't play till January after this, but who knows? Anything before that is great. And I bought him because I was like, oh, I think I'll play La Liga, classic La Liga, which as we now know doesn't exist anymore. But it was like, oh, he's also U23. And so I bought Jude Bellingham, and then I bought Bukayo Saka, obviously not for La Liga, but he kind of has like a U23 also. And I had this thought like, oh, maybe I'll just buy like the champ U23s because they're the most fun, and we'll go from there. And then I was like, maybe I should just buy the best players that I think maybe are a little underpriced. And so I bought Rafinha because I think Rafinha is underpriced for a number of reasons. Actually, I don't even know what the reasons are of why he's not priced more. I think it's just that like he never got more expensive, and maybe people just didn't buy that he was as good as he is. And then the whole who was transferring from Bilbao, from Bilbao.
Nico Williams.
I kept thinking Iñaki, and I'm like, it's the other one. And they were like, oh no, Rafinha's dead if Nico Williams. And it's like, what? Like that? No, like Rafinha, you don't become a Ballon d'Or finalist and then Nico Williams takes your spot. So I bought Rafinha, and then I was like, oh, I have Rafinha and Jude. And I'm like, I don't think I'm going to play in-season La Liga. Like, I think looking at all the streak numbers that people are putting out, La Liga might be the worst league for streaks because it's just not that high scoring. And obviously I have one of the highest scoring players, but I don't see myself buying like a Barcelona or Real Madrid collection because I assume those are going to be expensive. So then I'm like, what am I doing with this Rafinha? But I do think Rafinha is the type of player that you could buy a classic and run that in season. And I assume that his in season will be more expensive. And then I just came to kind of this topic of like, how many guys are there that fit into this mold? And I was actually talking to our good friend Harry Trades about this because he and I were really interested in playing champ in season this year. And then they were like, we're not going to have that this year. And I played champ last season, basically with Ligue 1 and Serie A cards. And so I kind of got into Ligue 1 a little bit. Of course, my main guys were like Teji Savigny, who got relegated, Zuriko Davidashvili, who got relegated. And I saw him linked to Newcastle recently, and I was like, please no. But I have like guys that now I have no idea where they're going to go. They are classics anyway. And I loved Andre Santos. Like maybe he stays at Chelsea and I can't play him where I want to, and he's not going to play. But I was looking at Ligue 1 and I was like, how many guys are there in Ligue 1 that you would actually want the classic card of? Like that the in-season would just be so expensive and the top guys. And I literally got 3 players deep and I was like, is that it? And they all play for PSG, which like rotation wise could all just ruin it. And then I basically walked into this topic of like, how many guys are there in each league that you want the classic only because it's so much cheaper, but you still want that player.
Who are the PSG 3? Because my guess is Hakimi, Vitinha, Dembele.
So I didn't have Vitinha because I'm dumb. So I'm I will, despite being fit for most of the season, I will forever be fearful of Dembele being hurt all the time.
Okay.
But my three were Hakimi, Dembele, and Kvaratskhelia.
Not even Jon Snow?
That's as far
Fair
as I
enough.
got.
Yeah, fair. I was just thinking top three. I just because I think part of the classic dilemma part is the position. So the Rafinha thing, like I follow. Obviously, I won that Salah last year, and I turned that into a Rafinha just because of moves and whatever. But the thing with Rafinha at the moment is Barca are constantly linked to another player up front. You know, Nico Williams, Luis Diaz. Somebody else was in the frame. Marcus Rashford thinks he's in the frame, but like he's just going to wait for that day he wakes up and he goes, "This isn't happening," before he moves on. So I think that's the main thing. But like you say, Rafinha has been captain at times this year as well, and I made like a bit of a shot on him earlier last year. I was just like, because I wasn't a big Rafinha guy per se, but he had like a few moments last year. I won't bore everyone going over it again, but that is the sort of player like for forward position is like a no-brainer if you see the price of the classic being kind of within range at a top team in Champions League. When fit, did play every game. Any additional signing will curtail some minutes, you think, in some of these matches, but it's not going to make a huge difference. You know, like if he is only going to play with a new signing on board 70 minutes, he maybe has his hat trick by the time he comes off there. Maybe just doesn't get that last 20 minutes where he does nothing anyway, kind of vibes or whatever. You never know. So it will take some minutes off him if someone else comes in because they were very thin this year, but it doesn't think changes level in the pecking order, as it were, and ultimately how well he does against Espanyol or whoever, you know, that's still going to be pretty fine. But I think the formation that they've announced so I think one of the interesting things about this topic, especially coming into it, like what you've said already, has gave me a lot of food for thought in terms of placing the market over the competition. But also because the formation is you need two defenders, two mids, only one forward, and then your extra. No matter how you look at it, you need to have serious defense and mid options, like because
Certainly
they
for
are
classic.
yeah. Well, I'm kind of all over the place, I suppose, with the utility on it, of course, but even going into the in-season one, I suppose, well, yeah, because the forward and whatever is still always going to outstrip it on price, isn't it? I suppose, but I think sometimes those other positions, but where you think like you need I remember for La Liga last year, it's like going to be like everyone was saying, "Oh, you're going to need Mbappe and Vinny and Yamal to be able to do it." And yeah, that was the case for a lot of the time. But there was always other guys that could get a couple of decisives here and there, and if you had a good team around them, you know, the budget guys did have their moment in the sun, sort of thing. So if you are going cheap on forward anyway, that super banger kind of classic defender or mid is going to carry you quite far as well. Because again, when you're thinking about the classic spot, you want to be captaining the guy as well. And some of those defenders and mids, you can maybe rely upon a bit more depending on the fixture to be able to come in. So it's a tough. I think it's even tough on position to even think about coming into this year. Ultimately, I don't think it's just as simple as like it has been before. Like you say, the Rafinha, the Salah, the forward type players, because there is fewer of them, and generally, as a consequence, are more expensive. But I think in the in-season competition, just because of the lower volume on entries, obviously it's now 4 entries, but you know what I mean, managers, there's less people in season versus classic, of course. You can get away with that guy that's going to get a 70 or one decisive that plays for a mid-table team more than you will in the classic one, of course. So it's So the position, I think, is quite a tough one to even narrow down on it as well. Although the forward is quite a good option, and it's probably going to be the go-to for the most part.
That's sort of what I was thinking of, because I can't remember where it came up. I thought it was Twitter, and I was just looking, but I can't find it. But I was basically asking, I think it was Prem-wise, like, who are the classics that you want? And somebody made a comment earlier that it was Philly Dilly, like the best classics for in-season are like the different position ones, like a Verts forward or a Soccer and Palmer forwards. Although my expectation is that Saka and Palmer will be forwards again, so those cards aren't going to be quite as scarce. But I think somebody replied with Virgil Van Dijk, and it was like, Van Dijk is definitely the best defender, but are you really going to use your classic spot on Virgil Van Dijk, and then if you want the best players to have to buy an in-season Palmer or an in-season Saka, whereas I feel like buying an in-season Van Dijk and the classic Saka or classic Palmer might be just an easier way to get in financially.
Yeah, like guys like Palmer, they're 100 capable, distinctly.
Right.
You know, like that's another tier, that's another kind of layer on it, isn't it? But even before you mentioned Van Dijk there, Van Dijk was who came into my mind because he just has got a magnetized to him. Liverpool are going to be a top team again, especially like, you know, like in my experience of watching football, normally when tragedy affects a team, like they only kind of galvanize and kind of become a bit more resilient, especially in the kind of the aftermath of it, just to call a spade for a moment on it. Don't see Liverpool being anything but amazing next year. And the way he scores, like having him in defence is going to get you a winning lineup. It might not always get you on the podium, might not get you because of the consequence if you're sacrificing up front, perhaps, or whatever. But, you know, there will be weeks where it'll be like, oh, if you had Van Dijk in defence, you were going to be all right for the most part, you know, because he slammed 95 with no decisive, or maybe got his wee decisive and done something incredible. But it has to be that top shelf, you know, I think, for any of the positions. And, you know, I think because of you have to play two in defence and midfield. Like if you're first getting your early access squad together, you get the goalkeeper, you're going to get two mids of like your kind of feisty tier 2 level guys, maybe, you know, and you're doing the same sort of thing with like a bottom end tier 1 guy up front, perhaps. Having that Van Dijk in defence as captain, like that could just be like, hey, we're going for it, guys, you know. And if these kind of off the wall tier 2, tier 1 level guys, 2 or 3 of them come together, you know, you're maybe not winning, but you're in it. You know, you're getting some cash, you're getting some more than the average kind of decent score or whatever. You're kind of went up a notch. So
yeah, I think you made a great point there before about how like you're going to want to captain that classic card, because the idea is like that's your best one. You're spending more on a classic card because they're the best players, and that's basically what I wanted to talk about today. Rikoman said not having Neves or Vitinha on that list is crazy. I will give you on not having Vitinha, but this is João Neves, and like I don't need this classic card.
Yeah.
That's all. I had to point that out. I was going to make a watch list on the show because a lot of people just don't know how to do it. But I'm going to put them all together. But let's do a league by league if you don't mind. And frankly, fun. I'll start in the Prem and I'll add Van Dijk to the list right away just to get him out of the way. Actually, can we add him directly from here? I think there is a way to do it. Yeah, it's this humongous button. Be. I'm going to start a new one. Classic cards for in season. There we go. All right. I assume that means Van Dijk's on the list. Now he is. All right. So who do you think, who like immediately comes to mind with this? Because I feel like there's almost no more thinking beyond just the immediates. But maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I do think like seeing Guardiola on screen there just made me think of him straight away. So I was kind of suckered into that. Obviously very biased, but same kind of principle as Van Dijk really. But yeah, so Man City I think will be pretty good this year as well.
Is there? I feel like the only reason Bruno doesn't make the list is that he is heavily linked to Saudi, and I don't even think he is right now. Although that seems like one that just pops up it doesn't pop up out of nowhere. Like we see the news and we're just like, oh, but there's also like no hint before it happens.
That's pretty much as it sits at the moment. But I would say Bruno is easily on the list for like obviously all the SO5 stuff, but Amarim it's come out and said like if Bruno's doing something that's happening, there was like a soft deadline between them and all the chat and whatever. And I think it came close, but it never happened. So I think Bruno is in, barring like a real like random recurrence of something. And Man United aren't in Europe, you know, so they're just going to be playing weekend to weekend cup games and whatever. Mm-hmm. Bruno's, when it comes to the weekends, Bruno will just be locked and loaded and ready to go. They're not playing Thursday nights and Albania or whatever, like they were this year. They'll just be on their couch watching the telly. So I think Man United, if you can get they're probably a really good squad this year on budget. They probably won't be in budget because it's Man United and whatever, but the no European football thing is always advantageous for those bigger teams that have had an off season. Pretty sure Chelsea one year, I don't think Man United have got anything like this in them, but I'm pretty sure Chelsea won the league one year off the back of that kind of thing happening before. And whatever else. So I think Bruno's really safe this year, as long as he stays.
Yeah, I agree. Like how much is he now? 149. Man, makes me remember about the one that I won.
Because they look good as well. Cunha and Mbeumo coming in makes a big difference to their output up front, and if he's getting assists, could be fun for them. I hate to say.
Pico players on Declan Rice, which I just feel like Rice is on a different level and not a higher one.
Yeah, I would agree with that, but I do think the way Arsenal are signing at the moment, like it says, Ruben Mendy coming in makes a bit of a difference, and Gyökeres is basically all but done at this point, and it's between if they get Rodrigo, by the way, I think Rice has all the ability to score just like Jude, really, for the most part, and it's about just the team coming together a little bit better. And Arsenal are kind of based on their transfer business this summer, they are at now or never time. With Arteta, it's get whoever it is, and this year it happens, no effing about. So if Rice is going to be the main box-to-box midfielder in the team, it does take some sets and stuff as well, as we've seen last season. He's probably really good. He's maybe not quite as loud as Bruno on scoring, but he kind of does get you around the same place.
I mean, he certainly peaks. It's not like he can't reach 90. Yeah. Okay.
So I don't mind Rice. I think as it sits now for midfield for Arsenal, it's probably the only place you're looking. Failing a Saka mid, which is maybe, I don't know, even a better situation than that. Midfield is a tough one in the Prem because the better teams will have that fixture pile-up that we're saying Man United won't have. A few of them are in this kind of state of flux as well. Chelsea are doing a lot of business. Tottenham have changed manager. Obviously Liverpool we've mentioned already. Wirtz is mega. I don't know if he'll do much more in midfield. Wirtz is going to be huge. What's a Wirtz Classic sitting at the moment? Because that should be unreal. Really.
He probably isn't in this group. 195 is the. Oh wait. Okay, yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I don't know what that's in comparison to that list. Sorry, but I think Wirtz will be mega.
He worries me only to the point of new player in a new league. The number of guys who smash in their first year, that's just not that long. And he's a bit, he's on the younger side. I don't know if that helps or not. Maybe it does.
Yeah.
I don't know. I get really hesitant on being overly optimistic about guys joining new leagues.
Yeah, fair. I think Liverpool's a great landing spot for a world-class player. And I think I've just got a lot of faith in Wirtz as well. I've just got a good feeling that this is one of those moves where it hits the ground running. I can't think of any direct examples, but there's definitely been players where this kind of thing's happened before. Team wins the title, reinforced with a world-class signing, and the guy comes in and does pretty well because the team's already quite well established and whatever. I've just got a good feeling he kills it this year. I think Arne Slot did a pretty good job at Liverpool last year. And the Liverpool midfield outside of him, maybe I'm throwing shade on somebody, but I don't really think there is any other outrageous option there. And if you're thinking about that top tier, you were saying, Rice is at a level, but he's not maybe the Palmer and the other guys, Bruno's and whatever, which is probably fair enough on last year's scores. But Wirtz is the guy that could go into that top shelf, easily. Could be double decisive as many times as you want him to be, and if he's doing that kind of numbers, he'll be scoring for fun. So
we're looking at 195 for the floor of his midfielder, 372. This is dollars in for the forward, and last sale was 200. So it's about that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair enough. Frimpong could do all right. And do you know, the funny thing about Frimpong, right, is I don't know where I picked this intel up, right, or insight, or whatever you want to think of it as, but I've seen it and I've double checked it with something else, or I've heard it, more than one place or whatever. It's got to that stage, so I've written it down. But Frimpong has been earmarked as being Salah cover in the team as well. So there'll be games where he has like stated, like he's starting the match right wing for Liverpool.
Wow.
He's got a right back behind him if they're playing the same formation as last year or whatever. So that could be sneaky, like wild. Like obviously we know what Frimpong's like. I don't really expect the overall outlook to change of him, but if he's starting games against bottom of the table as right wing,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like you might want to have him in up your sleeve for such a week, you know.
Is there a way to add him to a watch list from here? I feel like I'm probably missing something very obvious, but I can't see.
I'm normally not too bad at doing that myself, to be honest, but as I look at I maybe need to open it on my own screen and then I'll see it.
I'm not going to find him in the Prem. All right. Some feedback there for the and now he's
Yeah, I can't see it.
Is he still on Bundesliga maybe? Come on.
He should be on Prem. I think he showed up as a Liverpool player on that screen, was he not?
Oh, he does. You're right. But I don't.
Maybe he's just further down that list, probably. Or not.
In Sorare limbo.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, no Liverpool cards.
Squad player, first team. Just give me everyone from Liverpool. Anyone who's ever even been to Liverpool. Well, maybe that's why he's not any more expensive.
Yeah,
nobody can find him. All right, so we've got the mids. Isn't there an A at the top of the player page?
Yeah.
A plus. I didn't see one, but we can follow him. I can get some notifications.
Maybe click the follow button, because that is a watch list of sort. No, it's not. Yeah. Anyway. I just drew a blank on it.
Yeah, I got nothing. So
Palmer, if he's not actually on that list, just needs to go on by default, I think.
Does Saka go on it?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Because Saka's definitely at Arsenal, you know.
Yeah.
So like that'll be he's always good value for it, I think. If you're taking one Arsenal player, you're taking Saka.
Right.
Although that bar there, looking at that, isn't that great.
It's yeah. He definitely doesn't like. Obviously, this is what you want, but I think his AA is lower than people kind of just expect it to be.
Mm-hmm.
You need to swap for classic prices in the advanced view. I already had it. I'm not looking to buy 24, 25. Saka had a lot of sub on and off after coming back from injury. Okay, that's fair. That's fair. What is clear is that Aaron Wan-Bissaka doesn't go on the list.
DT is mentioning Rodri, and it feels like Rodri kind of should be on there as well. Of course, I wouldn't be surprised, but if Reinders was, we could just get into a Man City theory level here. The whole team could be amazing next year. You know, like they've made some good signings, and you had Cherky into the equation or whatever. I think when we're thinking classic cards, you maybe, I don't know, I think we're thinking about like the absolute 0.5 top percent, you know, like not just the guys that should be brilliant, I guess, but depending on where you're at and what your budget is anyway. But yeah, Rodri should be up there, back from injury. Man City needing a rebound. You know what Rodri does, Ballon d'Or holder, as he
Right.
sees it, and he's not really kicked a ball since he won the thing. So
For real.
he's got a big point to prove. His team are behind him and all that stuff. So should be what we expect him to be for the most part.
Caicedo is just one that I just don't think the difference between his in-season, like I don't expect his in-season card to be overwhelmingly expensive where I'm like, I'll just take the classic. But maybe I'm not giving him enough credit.
Yeah, perhaps. I think the price on that is the most important part, like you say, because I think Caicedo is basically in that kind of Rice level where like Caicedo's always going to bring you in around the 60 mark. And if he jams himself a wee cheeky decisive somehow, or he has a freak game, he can really pop off. I won him last year. I crafted him, and I found him like honestly plug and play. Team 2, no problem. But sometimes Team 1. So he's not quite that always Team 1 level guy, but can be. And again, when they're AAs like tackling and passing and stuff, it's just a bit more reliable. You feel better. Same as the Van Dijk thing we mentioned before.
Yeah, you know what you're getting, and it's a lot usually.
Yeah.
Ryan's asking about Sonny. I think Son's more likely to play for LAFC than he is to make this list.
Yeah, I think with guys that have got a questionable future, especially for the in-season classic position, because there is no champ as a safety net.
Right.
So if you're buying a guy to be Prem, Bundy, whatever, if they shift, your plan's screwed. You need to go and move that. So I think you just want to stay away from anyone that's not nailed, just in the door, or like there's zero speculation and for some sort of reason, they're important to the team. They're a good team.
Yeah. We hadn't gotten Salah on there, but he's on there now.
Of course, yeah, he should be somewhat default as well. Same as Palmer, like even without the conversation bringing them up, those guys just go in, don't they?
Yeah, I think got the Newcastle shouts of Bruno, Guimaraes, and Isak.
I'm a big fan of all the Newcastle guys, but I would, if you're going to buy a classic Newcastle card, I would really wait until their window's finished, because not for fear of anyone really leaving, but I think depending on how they go about the rest of the window will probably have an impact on the likes of Guimaraes, Tonali, maybe not Isak as much or Gordon, but how well they score and how well they do. Depending on how the evolution of the team kind of shakes up for it. I do think some of the defenders are good shouts, by the way. Lewis Hall and Livramento are pretty, like Newcastle defence is probably really safe to back right now. Trafford just coming in. They're still trying to get a centre back, but Livramento and Hall are really good. You can look at them, even if you're just playing in season, maybe they could be good value picks, or like if you're just going to have a classic SO7 at some point, those guys will probably be cheap enough at that. I'm seeing Livramento there 24, that'll be on classic, and Hall at 30. So again, for a Premier League classic defence, and that's another thing as well. I kind of meant to kind of high. This is what I was trying to babble about earlier on, right? But see, because it is double defence and double mid, the profile of defenders and midfielders you're now picking, I think, has to be a lot more deliberate. Whereas at the moment, we all just buy defenders, and when you come to pick your team, like sometimes, of course, if you go double defence, you maybe got like a little stack you've built, and you've deliberately done it as such. But in the general sense of you're just building a Sorare team, you just kind of look at your individual categories and you go, all right, well, this guy's got a good game, we'll pick him, and this guy's got a good game, I'll pick him, etc. But because you're always going to have to play double defence, like I think centre back and full back is an interesting thing now, where like Hall and Livramento, like that could be a wicked like double full back play, which has its own pros and cons associated with it. Same as double centre back, of course, because now everyone needs to play double defence, and that's like, as we all know, you just get different things from fullbacks than you do centre backs, as a back four, as a back five, a back three, however you're thinking about some of these things, So like if you want to go double defence, maybe you pick a 5 at the back, or a 3 at the back team or something. So yeah, some of those guys, if you're thinking Newcastle, I think they're just as worthy of a shout. Because Gordon, I love Gordon personally, but even if you look at that bar, like he's not a guy to think about right now to be buying, and say, oh yeah, Gordon's the one for me.
So Gordon is one guy I wanted to ask you about. So there are 2 players that I asked Harry about recently, and he was like, they're toast. And I was like, all right, well, let me ask somebody else. One was Gordon, and he was like, without knowing what happens to Isak, but like if Isak leaves, that actually, he doesn't think that helps Gordon at all. Probably doesn't help anybody. But I was like, is Gordon really like that dust? And he was like, yes, he is. The other guy that I was curious about, and I feel like you may have a little bit more of an insight on, which this player shouldn't be in the discussion today, but you're here, so but bringing it up. In no way do I think this is one of the best players in the Prem, but a player that I think might end up being undervalued, I'll say, is Matt O'Reilly.
So O'Reilly has kind of like fallen out with the manager, and by all accounts wants to go to Roma. Yeah.
Oh, good.
This Hulserer guy. So O'Reilly's quoted as saying like he wasn't used in his best position or whatever. Not go into it in too much detail, right? But he went to Brighton. Atalanta were also interested in him. The Atalanta manager is now the Roma manager, and O'Reilly's fallen out there. Roma are interested, so wouldn't bank on O'Reilly being a Premier League player. It might just be hot and smoke. I think O'Reilly will probably. It might just be all media stuff, so maybe look into that a bit further. But as a kind of surface level, that's kind of how that sits at the moment. Gordon, I think the Newcastle squad did like great last year, obviously historic, but it was really thin, and I don't think Gordon ever really got to enjoy a lot of the benefits of having players to rotate with and the fixtures to manage or whatever. So even though like Barnes came in, Jacob Murphy did great as well. A lot of these times, like the combos were kind of forced together rather than having like quality options around it. So if Newcastle had like another Anthony Gordon level forward for me, I think Anthony Gordon becomes a lot better. I just think they'll then start scoring more goals than they did last year. Last year, their defence was great, and I don't think their defence gets any weaker. But their attack needs a bit more depth. I don't think any of the boys are going to leave because just winning that cup, like they were all quoted as saying, we're here to win cups, we're here to win medals. And a lot of people think that now gives them the out to leave. But although it does, they also qualified for the Champions League, which is why any team, any player would leave Newcastle is like, oh, I want to play Champions League. So they've all just won a cup and done the Champions League together anyway. So the only moves Newcastle, I think, make out is any ones they need to do financially. And as things stand now, they don't need to do anything financially because they've kind of paid their penance in windows gone by. So I think, with Newcastle in general, I would just wait until you see what other moves they make because I think they'll look a bit different by the end of the window. Maybe not too dramatically, but you can never rule it out. So I think overall that's where I would sit with them for any of the Champions League teams from last year.
Makes sense. There was a comment. Where was it? Dobbsy said Saliba or Gabriel. I just don't think either of them are good enough to be your one classic in season. That's all. Like,
definitely not. No,
you're going up against lineups that have one of these guys. The one player that we haven't talked about at all that I don't think goes on the list, but somebody might, is Erling Haaland. Would you put him on this list?
Oh, yes. I think Haaland is on any list, to be honest with you. Like last season I haven't even checked this out. I'm going to have a guess. Is the worst year of his career for goals?
Might have been.
I know he's only young and whatever, but again, I don't think it's his peak Haaland we're seeing. I don't think it was anywhere near peak Man City, as we all know, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And like he's now playing with Doku, Marmoush, and Cherki. You know what I mean? Like, oh, Man City could just be wild this year. There's somebody else as well I'm forgetting, Savio. And who knows, they might even sign somebody else. You never know. So yeah, I think Haaland is in there. Sorare Holland is bringing Cherki up. I do think, like, if we're going to depend on some of the guys that have made this list, I think Cherki as a forward certainly comes into the realm. But as you know straight away, like, you cannot rely upon these guys for every game in Team 1. Just not the way it's going to go. They might need to play them in Team 2 or maybe even Team 3 sometimes, depending on what's going on, Yeah. But definitely a Team 1 level guy. But you have to accept with someone like Cherki that part of the game you're playing is you're not getting 100% of matches and you're going to get random misses or requirements to substitute him out, potentially, depending on, what game we're playing and what's available. We'll see,
Yeah.
So that's the only thing. So do you need to kind of buy two guys if you get a Cherki level guy or a Cherki type? Do you maybe need to buy him and an alternate?
Philly Dilly makes the good point, though, that if you want Haaland, like, his in-season's still going to be expensive, whether he's on the, whether he's on our list or not. So totally. How much is his? I didn't even look when I added it.
I think classic Cunha's will be like probably quite good because I do think Man United Cunha's will be expensive. Like, because as soon as in-season starts, he won't be cheap.
Mm-hmm.
And if he starts firing in, like, what that price is just going to do. for ages, especially playing alongside. Like, they're a very stackable team this year, sadly, on paper. Like, paper and reality I've not met for Man United too often in the last 15 years or whatever. But, there's a few of them this time around. It might happen. You never know.
I wonder if he falls in the category of not showing up anymore because of the transfer already.
Yeah. Because he has solid AA, Cunha, and he was doing that at Wolves. You know what I mean? Now,
Yeah.
Man United finished below Wolves this year, if memory serves me. But you would expect that to change this year. So, like, again, more decisive means better scores.
Yeah. Let's move to La Liga because I think this one's going to be really quick because there are just not that many good players there. There were a number of people in the Sorare Scandinavia. Well, let me rephrase. The Sorare Scandinavia Discord could be renamed the Isco Discord because they love Isco so much. And I just feel like Isco is a player that, like, surely you should, if you're playing La Liga, you should get him because he's very, very good. But using a classic Isco and trying to keep up with people who are using a classic Yamal or Pedri or Rafinha just doesn't seem like using a classic Isco makes sense in season.
Isco is just like Cherky. Different ages, obviously, but it's the exact same game. Like, he will be Team 1 capable, no two ways about it, but you're kind of the deal you're making with that move because of the price difference is the pain that will come sometimes, that it won't happen for him. He might randomly not play. But he's very much in that ability there. Pedri, honestly, I don't think there's any time I ever see his graph and I'm not astounded. Like, it's just wild. Like, he gets to almost 70 on AA like every game as a floor, Never mind.
I mean, he's got a 67 L40.
So wild, man.
Every time I look at it, I just can picture Harry just like victory lapping it because he's been a Pedri guy for so long.
He's been so good, but he's classically, like, he is one of those guys that shouldn't be good on Sorare.
Yes.
That, like, you watch him play and you think he's amazing, but I bet his AA has not moved a jot. But his AA just does move, like, everything gets captured, no two ways about it. He's undeniable. So yeah, he's a real standout on the graph there for sure.
Yeah. I'm going to put Jude on, even though he's going to miss most of the season or most of the first half, I guess. Sure. Do you put Arda Güler on the list?
I think Güler's in with Xabi Alonso. I think Xabi's a Güler boy, And yeah, like, you can see what he's done in Club World Cup. La Liga won't be too different, by the way, scoring wise. Champions League is a different kettle of fish. But playing, Mallorca at home and stuff like that, like, Arda Güler is good to do that all season. That kind of graph you see there. So I think that's really appealing. Does have a bit of under 23 tax on him, but like, he'll be able to do that, no bother, against so many of those teams. A lot of these guys are kind of red herrings. I wouldn't touch them. Nico Williams just signing a 10-year contract, but is interesting. Super nailed on to play. Should be buzzing. Should be getting paid like it must be the richest guy in town now if he wasn't already. So he'll be living his best life.
Where was? Oh, that's right. It was RDP's heading to Miami.
Yeah. So if he doesn't accept a contract extension, Athletic are kicking him out.
That's not getting me to buy his classic card. Vinny?
Yeah, I think the whole Real Madrid squad is somewhat viable, depending on your budget, to be honest with you. I just think that AA is so well pronounced on the game. Xabi Alonso, I don't think is going to slow that down. It is just about nailing their team.
Mm-hmm.
Barca's not quite the same, I think. Like, Barca have got, obviously, like, Pedri, Yamal, Rafi, and, whoever really cracks defense for them this year, like, could be a really solid 5 easy, just as good as Real Madrid's. But I think Real Madrid have seriously got like 7 guys you could buy in that kind of vein. They maybe don't quite hit the Pedri levels, but they certainly hit the conversation. Like, Tchouameni at centre-back could be wild in the league.
Not sure why we only get like 7 players who show up on this list. Like, where's Mbappe? There he is. I had to take first-team players off. I'll put him on the list, even though I would never buy him.
Mbappe had a record-breaking first year. Again, don't see him slowing down. You only see him kind of going for it. So If they do change the shape as well to 2 up front with him and Vinny, and they get a real partnership kind of thing going.
What do you think about Trent?
Trent should, yeah. Again, like the whole Real Madrid team is viable, I think, this year, really. There's maybe like 2 guys or whatever you don't even think about. But yeah, Trent definitely comes into it as well. You've got to think, like, 80% of their matches are favourites, you know, and they're in a low-scoring league for the most part. They are very solid defensively. They've got arguably the best keeper in the world. So, like, there's just so much not to like. Xabi Alonso would need to really flop hard for it not to work out, which just doesn't feel likely at this point. Valverde again. Valverde's probably like the Real Madrid Pedri, although that graph isn't quite as popping. I think Valverde's basically the equivalent. But
yeah, David compared him to Pedri, or I'm sorry, he said he's so cheap versus Pedri. His scores when Bellingham were out at the start of last season were incredible. He thinks he's first or second best mid in La Liga when Jude is out.
Yeah, Valverde, I think's definitely in amongst that for sure. I know the graph isn't overly there, but the L5, the L15s and whatnot, L40, 62, you know, like he's definitely right up there. And I think he suffered a lot last year playing right back and stuff like that, which he did do well in as well, granted. But this new shape, if Real Madrid are playing free at the back and he's in midfield next to Arda Güler, Jude Bellingham when he's fit, like he'll have a lot more final third contributions in terms of even just accurate final third passes and stuff, never mind any goals or assists. So I think Valverde's kind of like your Real Madrid Pedri, but Real Madrid also have Bellingham, Güler, Vinny, Mbappe, just kind of like 2 up front, same as the Yamal and Rafinha. But then Trent in midfield, the Tchouameni card this year is probably going to be quite fun, and the goalkeeper is wild. So left mid now has kind of been that Fran Garcia. I don't know if he'll stick with him. Scores have been very good there.
Yeah, they have been.
And like he is like that Fran Garcia. I don't know how much he's watched the Real Madrid. He is not like he's the same as that guy Nacho, and there's somebody else. There's a few guys at Vallejo. There's a few guys that play for Real Madrid that aren't like Real Madrid level by comparison to the first team anyway at all. But they're like homegrown. They've came through the academy. They've kind of been on loan and kind of cut their teeth or whatever, and then they get their chance to kind of cut themselves in the squad if possible. And he's one of those guys where, like, he's not really that level, but whenever they play him, he knows it, you know. he has given everything for the cause, and like he will leave it all out there, you know, and do his best shift. And if Xabi Alonso thinks that's good enough, he could be sneaky, but maybe expect them to replace him.
Nacho's one of those players like when he retires, I don't think he's retired yet, but they'll show a picture of him that's just him in a room with like 100 trophies, and you're just like, oh, okay, yeah. He's fine.
Good shift.
So is Isco the only non-Madrid and Barcelona player? Realistically? Like, I don't think there's anyone. I don't think you're doing Julian Alvarez or Griezmann.
Baena at Atletico Madrid could be wild. Somebody pointed out to me as well, fist bump to whoever it was, it escapes me right now, that the combo was Baena and Sorloth at Villarreal. And by all accounts, Sorloth is going to start more than he did last year. Baena, as we know, is very friendly SO5-wise anyway. I've kind of got a wee play myself on the Villarreal situation, replacing Baena, but I think Atletico Madrid are always in amongst it. They're such a hard team to recommend cards for because they just are painful sometimes. Mm-hmm. But Baena is a sets guy. If De Paul especially is getting bombed out, and he is playing again with Sorloth, and they don't concede a lot of goals, so I know it's a mid, so it doesn't really play that much into it. But Baena's maybe an outside shout for like a budget player or something like that, to keep your eye on, see how he does in pre-season, see how like Atletico do shape up with him. Because if he links well with Alvarez and Sorloth, like he could just be, you know, 2 DAs a game, you know, just off of free kicks and stuff, you know, slinging balls in and sliding it through the channel or whatever. But yeah, La Liga is very circumstantial. It's very, you need to get the ball rolling and see who's actually delivering it on the pitch, because some of the squads can look great or whatever, but yeah, so many of them have backfired or take a while to get going or really shape themselves out for who is the guy that stands up. So yeah, it's kind of hard to go beyond what we've done already, I think.
I think streaks are going to be super hard in La Liga.
Yeah. Which again, like when you think about the defense thing, like if you're going for streaks, do you want 3 centre-backs every week?
Maybe.
You know? Like that's some of the extra emphasis, I think, on like the the defenders. Maybe mids, that's a conversation as well. I've not quite got there, but defenders is one I've been wrestling with quite a bit in this kind of classic situation and bleeding it into streaks. Or streaks, I suppose you wouldn't be doing triple defense. My mistake again. I keep doing
Still
that.
double though, like
I keep bouncing them off each other. SO7 and streaks. Apologies, but yeah, Bundesliga is one of these ones where like knowledge is a good edge. Like knowing some of the moves that have maybe happened for better or for worse. Outside of the Bayern Munich player, again, Bayern Munich are just Real Madrid in this conversation, I think. But there's like probably 8 guys, depending on your budget and who you're going to put around them, could be in the chat. And they've probably still got a transfer to do with Musiala being injured. So, yeah, I think Bundesliga is one that, yeah, you need to kind of know the players and the squads quite well to know who's going to pop off for the season coming. It's a tough one to get into early, I think.
How deep does Bayern go? Like I added Kimmich, Olise, and Kane. Like I feel like the defense was always just so fluid, I'll say, mostly because they get injured all the time. But like, can you really rely on a lot more?
I think Ta will be pretty big for them, to be honest with you. Again, I'm biased, but I think very good Bundesliga centre-back already anyway at Leverkusen when they won the league. You know, Bayern Munich, you expect to win the league all the time, so that's kind of like the peak situation again, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So if you had to go for a defender, because like Upamecano's great when he plays, SO5 scores are pretty wild. Like, Taz never really injured too often. Tall guy as well, so maybe wins a few more headers for what that's worth to you. Maybe scores another goal or 2 at corners because of that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't like Upamecano's great. Just always has a knack of not playing a full season.
Right. I'm just not sure I'm taking any of them as my classic card.
Yeah, that's a fair statement. That's hard to get past that, to be honest with you. Bundesliga in season, is Neuer in the conversation? I don't think you need a Neuer classic. I don't think that's something to sweat. So yeah, it's probably the main men, isn't it, for Bayern, I suppose.
Don Q is pumping up Middlestat.
Yeah.
Who was excellent.
There's always a fear with these guys like Middlestat, not him specifically, but there's always just that fear that the music stops. You know, like just for some reason, we've seen it 1,000 times, you know, with guys that are just SO5 smashes. He's also a great world-class player, plays for Germany and whatever. But that's always just my fear pre-season. It's just like, oh, does something happen that changes that from what we've seen last year versus some of the guys that are maybe just in comfier spots. But yeah, Middlestat's a great play by all accounts for the most part.
Stiller's at Bayern now, right?
No, that's Bischoff, I'm sure.
You're right. Yep. That's
and I think Simon's got an agreement where because Leipzig didn't qualify for the Champions League, he can leave, but it's a transfer fee. It's not just a free agent or whatever. So, I wouldn't bank on him playing anywhere until you know it.
Animals said Schlotterbeck, who
I love Schlotterbeck on injury discount. Like Schlotterbeck is best defender in the league, no matter who's fit. You know, like top. You know, and at a classic spot. Is that what you want in Bundesliga? That's probably not a bad shout. Again, the Van Dijk conversation, you can captain him, you know?
Right.
Just go for it. And Schlotterbeck, big fan. And injury discount, always nice to get.
Yeah. Philly Dilly was asking about Kimmich defender. He doesn't have defender.
Smart play for the classic. Oh, does he not? Philly Dilly, we've been doing this stuff too long because Kimmich started as a right back, of course. Like,
yeah, he's played plenty. There are guys with defender cards who have played defender way less than Kimmich, and yet he still doesn't have them.
I was thinking in this conversation, does Conrad Leimer get a defender card next year? Because he's only played right back for Bayern. You know, I don't know how he'd score as a defender, but he does get into the final third. He is like a midfielder, obviously.
Still has a midfielder here, so it doesn't make me think he'll get it.
If he gets a defender card, he's worth having. As a mid, he's not useless, but he's certainly not in this conversation about classics for in-season.
Right. Ryan said Bischoff fell off after he got the move to Bayern. It happens a lot.
Well, you know, let's see what Bayern do in the transfer window. With the Musiala injury and whatnot. Obviously, Sané's left as well. So Bayern Munich, you know, that they're spacing that team for somebody to come through. So again, Bundesliga knowledge is a big thing. I think, because some of the managers are just diddies as well for the most part. Like, I don't know how many Bundesliga clubs I've followed over the years on Sorare, and the manager is just an idiot. Like, can he get the team to score goals, or can he keep the defense to stop conceding them? Can he keep the players fit? Bundesliga stacks have been amongst the most frustrating, I think, over the last like 3 or 4 years. Down to managers above all else. Like, they've got the top pain in the neck managers, I think, for just being randomly inept. So yeah, knowing what ones to stay away from, I think, is good. Yeah.
What do you think about Guirassy here?
Guirassy should be pretty solid. I think you can copy and paste Guirassy. I don't think he gets much better. I don't think he gets worse.
The real question is, does he have any Ren cards on the market?
Oh, of course he does.
Floor
burger.
Did I tell you this is the last one?
Oh,
I have every other card except this one.
Oh, this is the last one. Lovely.
It's almost a little embarrassing, but he just never got worse. I was just waiting for him to get worse
as well.
What's that?
I just started that collection as well. Got my Camavinga back.
This one?
Yeah. I've got a Camavinga and a Doku.
Those are the most fun ones.
Sweet. I think Guirassy, you can copy and paste his scores from last year. Can he not buy him? I'm here as well, Laird. That's just fate,
What did he go for previously?
Oh, shut up with that pish. What are you kidding on?
Oh, it's a sale. It's cheap.
Floor burger.
I got money to spend elsewhere. Maybe. Would Musiala have been on the list had he not gotten injured?
Hell to the just got the number 10 shirt, off of Sané leaving, so he's going to go into. Or is that Muller's shirt? In fact, I beg your pardon. No, Muller was like 20 or something, wasn't it? 25.
Yeah.
Sané's shirt. So I think Musiala's about to go into top mode. Injury is a big setback for sure. Amiri's a really solid budget shout again. Mine's qualified for Europe.
I was going to bring him up.
He stays now as a result of that. He's just got the number 10 shirt or something as well, significant recently. So Amiri's locked. If you're into Amiri, he's locked in. Yeah, if you want him, he's fine. He's safe.
If there is a player that the sort of Scandinavia Discord loves as much as Isco, it's Amiri.
I love Amiri as well.
Yeah.
I'll never forget, he won me something amazing in D3 as a super rare. It was like a rare pro D3 win. And see the you got 2 decisives, mate, and see both of the decisives, they were like sexy. They were like chip to keeper and stuff like that, or had a pure zinger of a free kick for an assist or something. They were brilliant. So yeah, big soft spot for him. Ben Sabayini as well, by the way, wildcard shout could be a special pick this year. If he keeps playing left centre back in that kind of back three system, he could be good.
He could be good, yeah. I forget how to say this guy's name. Voltamade?
Walter Messi.
You don't like him?
Walter Messi?
Yeah.
Scores very well. No, I'm not his biggest fan, but yeah, he's a good player. Goes to Bayern. I think it's curtains SO5 wise, isn't it? But Walter Messi, I've heard he's called.
Our good friend PSU fans too was wondering if maybe he starts for Bayern and they put Kane in like a 10 and the two of them together. Question.
Yeah, because Gnabry's kind of 1 foot out the door, 1 foot in. They don't really know what's happening with him. Sané's left, Muller's left. Musiala's injured. So certainly not out the equation. He gets early season minutes. No two ways about it, So yeah, it's a pretty solid punt. Don't know if it means it's Kane's role that changes more than Waltamad fits in the system somewhere.
That's fair.
You could play him left forward and just tell him, "Well, you tuck in and help Kane, and we'll get width from Davies or something as the left back." Depends on this, Aye.
I'm going to move to Ligue 1. We'd already talked about Vitinha, Hakimi, and who was the other one?
Dembele.
Do you put Greenwood in there?
Greenwood's a tough one because number one, the chat section just starts booing.
Because he's a fucking horrible human being. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, chat section just boos, which is fair, but whatever. And like, I don't know, Marseille spend a lot of money and they're linked to a lot of players. They're in the Champions League this year. I expect him to still be a key player, but does someone even just come into the team just take a lot off his plate all of a sudden? Don't really know if that's the way it will work out or pan out, but that's just the number one thing I think about hyperactive teams that are just going to be doing lots of business this summer. Especially Marseille. I know under De Zerbi they've been pretty solid, very SO5 friendly as well, but Marseille over the years have been a very volatile club. Like if you woke up tomorrow and De Zerbi was sacked, you wouldn't be too surprised.
Yeah, totally.
It wouldn't be a surprise at all. So yeah, I just always feel a bit nervous with those ones on that kind of level. Maybe it's a bit too sensitive or whatever, but it's just something that always comes into my mind with those guys.
I just sorted this by L40. Arnau Tenyas, who's the backup at PSG, he's the third string at PSG, is first, but otherwise it's Hakimi, Dembele, Vitinha, Nuno Mensch, and Kvaratskhelia, which Nuno Mensch is an interesting one to me because score-wise, he probably deserves to be here, but the other guys just seem so much more expensive that it's like, I wonder if you could just get his in-season a little cheaper than the others and then use these guys as a classic.
I would say so, yeah. Especially with it being SO5 still in in-season, I need to keep reminding myself of that. But yeah, that could be a good play for the in-season card. For sure, because Nuno Mendes just needs his minutes managed more. You just feel like he needs rotated. The squad does that for him, whereas Hakimi can just play every week if they want him to. But they do rotate Hakimi sometimes. They really wrapped him in cotton wool this year for the Champions League. Will they do that again next year? Hard to say. But they've won the Champions League now, so that kind of monkeys off the back. So maybe they don't really rotate Hakimi and every player for the Champions League again, to pure force it.
But genuinely, I think that's the entire list. Like a lot of people talk about Gaetan Perrin, but it's like, I don't think he's going to be that expensive.
Yeah. All of those guys that are on page the now do way down, like Bakwa, Perrin, Fabian Ruiz, and Jonathan Klaus. There'll be another 3 or 4 guys that are just like that. On the right day of the week, at the right time of night, with the right amount of market credits on your side, you may be able to get an in-season version of, especially if they start the first game of the season and do a 35, that makes guys cheap really quick, Which happens.
Juninho was another one that I lost.
Of course. He'll move on, but I don't think he'll be staying.
Oh, Højbjerg was the only other one that I was wondering if you thought he deserved a spot.
Yeah, Højbjerg's been living that classic life for a while, hasn't he? So yeah, Højbjerg's probably just as fine as long as, as I say, some random Marseille event doesn't happen, which is always funny. I remember one year Marseille signed Olivier Ncham from Celtic, and then the next day Andre Villas-Boas resigned over it, said he didn't authorise the signing of the player.
Something keeping me from adding Højbjerg to the list here.
Maybe he's already on it? No.
I don't think so.
But yeah, France will be funny this year because it's the only competition in Champ that we've not had a league-specific comp for already. So we've not really, MLS, I think, we're all kind of realising the volatility of MLS this year, leaning it against hot streaks and seeing how hard it is to get that reliable, consistent kind of output on team performance or whatever on your scores. But going into the hot streaks next year, if you play Premier League, La Liga, or Bundesliga, you already have a handle on what that league is like, the ups and downs, the way the fixtures can be maybe rescheduled down to cup progression, or lots of stuff. If you did those in-season comps last year, coming into this year, I think you've got to step on anyone who starts this year, experience-wise. I think that will be a factor in terms of squad selection, knowing what risks you can take, what guys are actually going to be getting to those scores, what kind of scores are required to get promoted. But we don't have that for France, because France has always been a champ play. Yeah. Same as MLS is, So in its own way, France could low-key be the highest scoring individual league.
It's exactly why I'm looking at it for streaks.
Yeah. Even if you take PSG out of the equation in terms of just other players, how many guys score above 70, how many guys score above 60 in defence and midfield and forward. It could just be, and then you add the PSG element on top of it, obviously. it could just be the most wild league of them all, score-wise.
I genuinely think it will be, which is why I think it's the one I'm most likely to play. Because you get like Strasbourg had like a number of really good scoring players. Obviously, Andre Santos was like the highest one. JT
Yep.
tells us talking about Paez, I assume the kid from Chelsea. He doesn't even have cards yet, though. So
Yeah, he's a card I'm buying. Like I'll get him, no problem. He's been on the radar for ages.
yeah,
That little kid. So definitely interested in getting a card for him. Oh, there was somebody else I seen gets a card this year. Oh, Paddy Roberts, that's who it was. But there's a few guys getting cards this year. Ken Pies, we'll see if we get him in. But that'll be fun. And Strasbourg have got a bit of form for bringing a guy like that
yeah.
up a level. Barco's signed on permanently there. Barco defender card is a very good pick as well, I think, for Classic, if you're on a budget, especially because Strasbourg will have midweeks this year, if I remember rightly, off the top of my head. But Barco was playing like midfield and stuff like that at times last year, and he can get you those types of Hakimi scores playing at Strasbourg, no problem at all. Does he do it as often? Maybe not, but can get you there. It probably costs like a tenth of a
He was on set pieces for a little bit too, if I remember. Oh, maybe
probably
not. I guess it finished with Bakwa. Weird. Maybe it's just one game. Huh.
Yeah. Andre Santos is gone, so they're all up for grabs now.
Right.
Right. So bit of a reset there. The boy Diarra's moved on as well, for what that's worth.
Yep.
Yeah, France will be, but again, like your Auxerre, maybe not Auxerre, right? But there will be a team like that could just be randomly amazing. They've got Jonathan Klaus in defence, a guy like that just pops 100s with decisives, and so yeah, France will be a tough one. It'll be tough to, unless you're really played with the French cards before, maybe an existing collection or whatever. I think it'll be a tough league to start from 0 on.
You can also not ignore the fact that a big percentage of the Sorare users that you're competing against are French and probably know Liga quite well.
Indeed.
Blue Tomatoes wanted to ask about Gyökeres. He seems like,
I think he'll just be like what we seen with Girassi earlier on that graph. I think that Gyökeres will be like that for the most part. I think, as we mentioned about Arsenal, this is their like all or nothing year for Arteta. Like if he can't win the league after they get Gyökeres and Madueke and Zubimendi and all this other stuff that they're meant to be spending money on, then when can they win the league? So I think you've got to look at Gyökeres as being like 30 goals capable goals, and then can he spawn himself into like 8 assists or something in the league? Never mind Champions League, which you probably don't think about too much SO5 wise when you're like plotting your in-season thing out. But last year, like if you could do well in the Champions League, by the way, that was worth something, So maybe they do all right in the Champions League as well. You bag some goals, get a wee hat-trick against Bratislava or something, So I think Gyökeres is a solid shout because Arsenal, even if they get him, it'll be like Haaland in the sense of they can't rotate him. Well, who the hell are they rotating him for?
Yeah.
They're not going to sub him off in the 60th minute for Havertz if they've not scored.
No.
You know what I mean? They'll just be playing him. So
let's move to Jupiler. I'm already out of my course.
Yeah, a little bit as well. Well, I bought Tresoldi off the back of the Bruges move. I think he slays it in Belgium, to be quite honest with you.
Okay.
Done quite well in Bundesliga too. It's the only kind of real thing I know I can bring to this conversation. There's a wee bit of Tresoldi hype, but yeah, because Belgium's got such a high turnover of players at every level. All the teams, so many incomings and outgoings. Like Bruges have already sold about £70 million worth of players. De Kuiper's left. Jashari's about to go to Real Madrid. Jutla has went to Celta Vigo, and Talby has just joined Sunderland or on the verge of it.
Wow.
So, and Tizolis, if he turned up at bloody Brighton or Brentford or whatever tomorrow, wouldn't be surprised either. Just random, this stuff happens. So Belgium, like pre-season, it's kind of Anakin. That's the kind of menu you're looking at, is who is the league guys, if you're to buy a classic for this, like who is going to be in that league and be dominant. And I don't think that's a big list, of guys that you want to rush into or make sure you've got locked and loaded.
Yeah,
I think Anderlecht have done some business, so maybe some new signings into the league could be an interesting way to go about it. But I'm not too up on all that right now.
Philly Dilly said these guys look cheap after the other league. So it's funny you say that because I was like, do you just take Vanaken because you're like, he's one of the best players in the league, and it's like for $36, is his in season going to be that much more?
Well, the in season is, that's the most. It's always going to be the most expensive, isn't it? Like how many will they sell before a ball gets kicked? Maybe 20 rares.
It might be a little more. I was trying to see what the prize pool is.
Jupiler is good. Eredivisie is better.
Oh, is it different?
Oh yeah, it's different. Eredivisie is the thinking man's in-season comp. I
did see people talking about how good it was, but I didn't see. Oh
yeah. If you love a bit of Go Ahead Eagles or Sparta Rotterdam, by the way, this announcement was amazing. Make no mistake about it.
Here we go. There's got to be a link
under this in
blog.
Yeah.
There we go.
Don't quite need a treasure map for it, but it's there.
All right, League on. Here we go. Eredivisie rare. Top prize is 2,000, and it's 1,200. This is Division 1 for limited, and then Jupiler 1,000 and 1,500. Wow. I mean, there are more teams in Eredivisie, right?
Sure.
Actually, no. Yeah. Are there?
Yeah. Belgium's 12. I think Eredivisie is 18.
Belgium's only 12?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Maybe 15. I'm sure it's 12. Because that's why they do their weird split thing.
Yeah.
Because there is so few of them. I could be wrong on that, but I think I've got the scale right anyway, with one versus the other, But yeah, it's a wee bit bigger.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like the guys that I had last year, like the Genk, like Stoikers and like none of these. Yeah, what is he? $46 for a classic now.
Stoikers doesn't really have much speculation that I'm picking up. Like even Siddiqui at USG is just signed for Sunderland as well. Like Belgium sell all their players. Balikwisha is hotly linked to Celtic. We're like the only team in for him.
Who is?
Antwerp Balikwisha.
Oh yeah, that's been for years. I feel like.
Yeah, certainly. At least, it's been too long, man. Or not too long, really. That Kvitskardin was way longer. And he's went to Norwich of all places, which is just egg on face for Celtic if we were actually in for him. But maybe it's just agent talk. But Balikwisha, Antwerp have cut their price. I think he'll be leaving. So I think it's just a really... Kevin McAllister, if you're into him, he's just signed a new contract. They did a Home Alone-based announcement video for it, as you might imagine.
Why not?
So if you're into McAllister for next year, he's pretty safe at 13 quid, which is a pretty wild price for an in-season boss defender, potentially. Because again, like you did with Haspelat, and people have done with both these leagues 1,000 times over, you can just get a little sense on pre-season of, this is the guy that's just transferred in. He's calling the shots now. He's in midfield. You can get to those guys quickly. Having like a captain, maybe not a captain, but a classic McAllister or Vanaken or whatever, that'll be fine. That'll work. It'll get you promoted from D3 to D2. It'll get you into the money as the season goes on, and then you try and get yourself into a better in season as you see who develops out to be the better in seasons.
Yeah, I feel like, and this is more based around people who have been on the platform for a while, but like I think a lot of us have a lot of old Jupiler cards anyway. It's not like we're going to go out of our way to get like a new couple classic Jupiler cards. Like we'll probably just, this is my best one. I'll play it. It just saves you a couple bucks from the in-season that you're going to have to buy. That's all.
Yep. Of course. So yeah, Belgium's one that you kind of, again, the locals are going mad for it. I don't know if you've seen Belgium, Sorare Twitter, if that comes on your timeline ever, but the Belgians were buzzing with this announcement, and that is a knowledge edge right there, like
for sure,
because of the turnover of players and whatever. So some of them will be licking their lips and rubbing their hands together.
Yeah, they just should call it the QTN special, and we move on from there.
Sure.
Eredivisie, I saw somebody say the other day that like PSV shouldn't be nearly as dominant this year. Noah Lang gone, Biscagli gone. I don't know who else left.
Tillman's gone. Tillman's at Leverkusen.
Yep. So does that make us think that it's more reasonable that we can play, like we don't have to get PSV stacks? And if that's the case, like I feel like the classic cards that you would want to play don't play in Eredivisie anymore.
again, it's the same kind of thing where the turnover of players is so brutal where you're kind of looking at Veerman quite quickly as like he should be fine. Or Flamengo, I wouldn't even bank on. He's too young. Like he could just be bought by somebody tomorrow. A guy like that, at 22. Like Hartman went to Burnley. Didn't see that coming at all. Great move for Burnley and all the rest of it. But so Flamengo, I wouldn't bank on that. But yeah, that's the kind of thing. I think PSV will spend money. Like I think they'll replace Noah Lang. I think they'll go on and replace Tillman and these other guys. Like PSV don't mind spending money on occasions, to get the bigger players in. Hence how they got Noah Lang in the first place, because Bruges took a couple of quid off them for that. They've sold lots of players as well, like Madueke, maybe able to hang on to Bakayoko now as a result of getting all this money. But I suppose they'll need to sign good players to convince them to stay. So yeah, PSV is a weird one. Yeah, the Dutch league might be quite open next year overall because Feyenoord have sold some players. Yeah, Holland will be, and again, it's the one that pays the most, by the way. So it's quite open, I think.
We say it's quite open when in reality it's still going to be either PSV, Feyenoord, AZ, or Ajax. Like those are going to be the higher scoring ones, at least week to week. Like streaks feel pretty easy in this league.
Yeah. Like I said earlier, like if you like Go Ahead Eagles or Sparta Rotterdam or, like there's been so many of those little stacks pop off over the years. Like Holland always has teams like that just randomly get 4 quality players in one window or something like that and finish 7th and get in the Conference League and then sell everyone and then get relegated or whatever, like Holland has just got, it's such a football country, such a football league, total football, and it's quite unrestricted in that regard. Like Dutch football, they don't really, I don't want to say not take themselves too seriously, but they don't try and like wash the football out of the game too much, like it's very like the football players are there to play football, so they better play football,
Yeah.
There's just no super, like, again, I can't really say it any other way. So if you can get a sniff on like where the next Jacob Bream and Oliver Antman are going to pop up from, like, yeah, the PSV stacks and whatever should dominate most of the time, but I think it's a really good league for knowing who the flavor of the month is as well, because those guys can rip.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And just either, preseason or even 1 or 2 games into the season, scouting, see who's on set pieces. And just like, I think you can find guys here that a lot of people are overlooking. Somebody mentioned, where was it? Nick Olai was supposed to go to Did he go to PSV? He was supposed to go to PSV.
Yeah.
And he got injured in a friendly yesterday or 2 days ago, and they signed someone else, and now I can't remember who they signed.
Oh, no way.
I kept thinking it was Kovar, the guy is that the young kid from Leverkusen?
Kovar's went to PSV.
Kovar went to PSV, yeah. Okay.
Yep. And Ajax have also signed a young Czech Republic striker, goalkeeper, to be their number 1. So they've both got young, I can't remember the Ajax guy. I'm sure it's Ajax, might be Feyenoord, but when I seen the Kovar deal, it's like 2 young Czech Republic goalkeepers are number 1 for 2 of the 3 big teams.
Yeah, so like PSV have Olai and Kovar. And it's like, that's not fun.
Not when Olai is fit.
Right. Yeah, I don't even know what his injury is.
Kovar's got to be going there with the promise of first team football, Bucks. Why are you leaving Leverkusen for PSV to do the same thing as what was happening at Leverkusen?
Ajax have Jaros from Liverpool. Is Kovar not a kid? I thought he was like 23.
I'm not sure he is U23.
I didn't say he was U23. I just thought he was 23, which
yeah.
I guess theoretically would be. 25? That's a kid to me. Sorry. Look at him.
Very fresh face in his picture.
I was going to say, this isn't a kid.
That's his first mustache.
Yeah. Apparently Bilo's still at Feyenoord. Unbelievable. Hallian said, funny enough, I have both PSV goalkeepers thanks to the giveaway. Oh, there you go.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't know if is Joey Veerman just the Dutch Hans van Aken at this point?
I think in this exercise he is, yeah. Like no one's really sniffing around him. He's had plenty of opportunities to leave and it's not really happened. Buscagli's left for Brighton. We mentioned obviously Bruges earlier. De Kuyper and Buscagli at Brighton. If you had those guys last year, are you buzzing for SO7 with them two in defence at Brighton? I think that could be all right. Might not be amazing, but it could be all right.
It could be. Yeah, it could be. On the right day, against the right opponent.
Yeah.
Maybe.
No midweek football, they're just going for it.
Right.
But yeah, I think Veerman, especially with no Buscagli as well, I think it would just be on the ball more, just by default,
He had that, was it in the World Cup or Euros? He had he started the first game and was so bad, and every transfer rumor just dried up. It's like they deleted them from the internet.
Yep. Somebody also pointed out that it was always bad against Premier League teams on something. I can't remember if it was a Twitter thread, if it was a live chat or something. I can't remember if it was a Sorare conversation or whatever, but it was the Euros performance, and somebody also seemed to kind of highlight, every time he's played a Premier League team or whatever, he's just always been mince. So, yeah, maybe one of those guys that sadly the big stage didn't help him out.
Yeah. I'm going to fix my other watch list here of champ guys to buy and just take O'Reilly off. Hold on one second while we're here. He's like looking at me in the picture. And Gordon's there too. I'm going to have to take both of them off.
I think Gordon's all right. I'd leave Gordon if he gets cheap enough.
Out.
Okay, fair enough.
I am curious what happens to Grimaldo. Like if he stays, I want no part of him, but...
Oh, really?
Where do you want
him to go? Barca?
Yeah, it was more if he went to Barca, I would snap him.
Yeah. I don't know. With no Wirtz and no Xhaka as well, he might just be all sets Grimaldo. Like
could be, yeah.
Like final form in that sense, like back to the Benfica days.
What about your boy Garcia?
I suppose. Yeah, he probably plays more this season, doesn't he? But it's Ten Hag as the boss, so I don't think you can forecast for Garcia until you see how he's shaping up in pre-season, Ten Hag, because I've got no idea what he's going to do with that team, to be honest.
That's why
I actually forgot about him, to be honest.
He stayed.
Yeah, fair. I think Ten Hag will do great in Germany for what it's worth. Like, I think, it's a bit attacking football. That team's built to attack anyway. As long as it doesn't, I think he'll do all right. To be honest, I think he'll be all right.
I forgot about Ferdy. I did not remember that he was there.
Yeah, Ferdy, of course.
Remember Harry did that great video about him, and then he got injured for the whole season.
Yeah, injuries was the main thing.
Yep. I could see a Saudi move for Grimaldo. I don't know at all, but...
I don't know.
Yeah. So looking at this list, we have 25 guys on this list.
Ooh.
None from Eredivisie. It's basically, this is the champion list.
Yeah. I think Eredivisie and Jupiler, you really need to keep your powder dry with that and maybe jump on transfers. I think Tresoldi, I think could be a quality forward at Bruges. And I didn't really buy him off the back of the news necessarily. I was just doing some scouting with the channel members, and it was like, we were looking at classic forwards for something, I can't remember what, and I think he was 13 quid. And then literally everyone else we'd looked at was a minimum of 25. So it was just more of I'm just going to buy that because he's going to be great. And he was way under mean or mode or whatever the average, whatever the average amount of people we've seen was. But I think that's those leagues, you have to be like that with them. Maybe you get a stack together of a team. Obviously, you need a kind of foundation perhaps. But in terms of the classic smasher, or if you're going to move into just classic current season in general, you need to. I think you really need to watch the teams, how they form, because they change so much every year.
Do you think it's bad we didn't consider a goalkeeper?
Now, I was going to bring the goalkeeper conversation up. I tried to remind myself with the Neuer chat, right? Because with no free goals conceded anymore, goalkeeper has the potential to be OP in terms of the classic choice. Because if there's a classic goalkeeper out there, could be Neuer. Let's say it's or Courtois, for example. It could be any one of the, let's say, the top 10 champ keepers from last year. If they don't get hammered for conceding free for however little it happens, it just makes a big difference to like their floor and even like their worst case potential if the team is rotating or whatever. But for those mid-table teams that have a lot of action on top of them as well, I've seen plenty of guys. So like, yeah, so it kind of goes twofold where the Courtois get even safer. That's kind of what I was trying to babble out there. The top 10 guys or whatever will just become even safer picks as your classic because there's like even less jeopardy on them backfiring because you know they're going to play. But the main increase obviously is to those competitive keepers where the amount of times I've seen a goalkeeper concede 3 and still do a 45. And you're like, oh, this should be, they only conceded 3, but it could have been 5 or 6 if it wasn't for him. Those guys are still now going to score pretty formidably. And if they don't have that conceding 3 penalty against them, like we were talking about the reliability, like the Van Dijk proposition earlier in the video or the stream, and there could be in each league maybe like 2 goalkeepers that are serious contenders as a Van Dijk would be in the conversation because, the team doesn't really concede that many goals for the most part, but they face lots of shots. And the way it balances out now is just way more favourable because there's just not that jeopardy on the third one conceding absolutely, taking the knees off them.
So I think
Pickford's a great shout.
I think that I'm not going to say we because I don't feel this way. I think everybody else is downplaying is not the right word. I think everyone is expecting goalkeepers to be significantly different because of this scoring change. If you concede 3 goals now, you go from 35 to 15. Now meaning like before this new rule change. You go from 35 to 15. In the new rules, if you concede 3 goals, you go from 35 to 20. And if you concede 4 goals, you go down to 15, which is the same as if you had the negative decisive. And if you concede 5, you're now down to 10. Like the -5 for every goal conceded is worse now if you concede 4 or 5. Like you actually get below the negative decisive. So I feel like everyone's like, oh, you need to get goalies that make saves. And it's like, that was always the case. And it's like, oh, the negative decisive, if you don't have to worry about -3. And it's like, well, if you concede 3, you're at 20 instead of 15. And I'm just not sure that's going to be that different.
Yeah, but you also, so you get the negative decisive to take it to 15. And then if you want to add on the score points for like the goal concession as well, you'll actually go down to like, how much was it for? Is it 3 points? So if you're conceding 3,
so you're really
so you go down to 6.
That's
fair.
Down to 6 that's fair.
Versus the 20. So you're up 14. But it's more for the counter swing to that as well, because even though those go like that, it's just the absolute capping of the knees of the 20 points. But I think what will happen a lot more now is you'll see, I think we'll get more goalkeeper 100s this year than ever before, like in any other year of one individual season. Like, I think it just opens that up. I think it opens it up much more for there to be 15, 60 goalkeepers that aren't clean sheet machines, anymore. Mm-hmm. It's just somebody that's like a decent keeper that doesn't get hammered 5 or 4, but they're always getting a few against them and whatever their team's competitive, they're upper mid-table or something. I think those guys could, it might even be somebody that reigns in around the 70s or 80s, just be the team is so leaky, but they're an absolute, shot stopper or, sweeper keeper or whatever. There could be some other stats that really get extra highlighted now. But I think I think it makes an improvement for some guys, no doubt about it. But I think you're right to add that in, because I didn't really totally weigh that into the thinking, is that it benefits the guys that are having a tough match. Like the guys that are getting hammered, it just say, they're the ones that are feeling the benefit more. It's not really as much the Courtois and whatever. The only benefit it gets to them is just a removal of some jeopardy, perhaps. But the guys that are going to feel this difference are the guys that are getting, goals after them. So they're not in a good team. They're not in a good situation. So they're really needing to work in those games. So they're probably more outliers than anything. So yeah, important context, I think, to add to it. But I do think the goalkeeper proposition greatly changes now.
Germ said, I picked up the entire Monaco depth for $70 this morning. Majecki and Cohn shared starting duties. Surely one gets a move, leaving a U23 backup. I saw, who was the guy from Lyon? Lucas Perry. He was linked to Monaco recently.
Watch out.
So maybe you might have 2 starting goalkeepers just somewhere else.
Yeah.
We'll see. Quinny, somebody was in the chat earlier talking about all these offers that they sent me, and I have 4 of them in my notifications. Do you want to look at them before we finish?
Sure. I've got one notification as well.
It was
the same person.
Yeah. So this first one here was my Griffin Dorsey and a Jamar Ricketts for Nelson Quinones and Yuta Ri. I don't know why I would want either of those cards. Ricketts, I have a San Jose collection, so I probably don't want to get rid of that. The Dorsey one I probably would be perfectly fine with, but I don't want to ruin my my San Jose 4%. And then they want to give me this card, Ivan Ilkia Dimi. I don't know who that is. And then Dimi. Wait a minute. Oh, do I have one of these already?
That's yours.
Wait a minute. I own this card?
You do?
Get out. The hell did I win this? Get this card. So they didn't want to give me this card. Yeah, thank you. I send this card. So they want that one for free. Okay. Or that in my unwrapped Neon Christmas Vitaly Mikolenko for also these 2 guys, who I don't want. Or Ricketts just straight up for you to already.
So 5D chess, those options there.
Is it 5D chess? It feels like 1D. Hold on. Who was this guy that he wanted from me for free? When did I get this card? Crafted 6 months ago. Okay. 19 years old. He doesn't even have. Oh, he has played. Anyway, I'm going to reject them. I got cards to seal, man. I can't just be giving away cards away.
Very good offers. Take your time.
Anyway, did you get the same one?
I've got one offer, but all my limiteds I give away to members, so I can't accept it. I'm sorry.
Whoever this is, Act 2 Sport 1, you could go become a member of Quinny's channel, and then you could be in on getting his limited cards.
Indeed.
Simple as that. Quinny, anything else you want to touch on while we're here?
I just like I said, I'd come in. I was planning on doing something myself, and then I seen you were doing this, and I thought that's what I was kind of going to do anyway. So if there's a wee spare seat at Laird's, this could be a good wee 2 birds, 1 stone, and long time no see kind of thing as well. So I was just thinking in-season classic, the whole kind of thing, and yeah, I think Eredivisie and Jupiler totally forgot about them. So I kind of had I've kind of ran out of steam, I guess, on all that. I can't think of anything else that we skirted by. I will say, Germ was talking about his Monaco stuff in there. I seen a very early comment in the chat from Germ, and I'm very much in the same mind as him. So I just ignored his comment, and I'm not going to quote him. So just as a wee thing, but I'm trying to keep that one quiet myself. I'm quite interested in a few bits and bobs. So the chat's been firing. It's been a good one, I think. And I think like the thing that adds into this with the in-season classic thing, right, is I kind of stumbled into by accident myself today. Is you again, like in-season cards, you're going to want to have enough good classic options where the ones you're not using, you're probably playing in a team somewhere else, and that team most likely for most people is going to be a classic champ outfit of SO7. So I think that's a good way to even just structure this exercise in general for like anyone out there that's doing it or on a budget or whatever. Is imagine like worst case scenario, you'd never got an in-season team together. Like, what could you do with the pieces you've got? Would they actually fit together? Would it actually be a team that, could do something in there to help you win essence or cards or whatever? And then like know that the best one you could always flip into in season and run that. But yeah, So that was one thing I was thinking. But when you mentioned the whole putting the market above the competition, I thought, oh, I haven't thought about that. So yeah, I think I pretty much said everything that I thought we would just get through in that regard. But that's me just kind of recapping in my mind, remembering everything we've went through on this bit of an odyssey we've had today, Laird.
Sure has been. I wasn't expecting us to get deep into Jupiler and Eredivisie, but I'm like reminded, like I don't play. Oh, I'm sorry. There is one thing I wanted to bring up, like specifically to you. But like I played Challenger last year very poorly, and I think part of it is I just didn't want to take the effort to learn enough of the guys, and so I just kind of tried to half-ass it, and I got what I deserved basically. Now that Celtic are in Challenger, how do you feel about that? Since you were like, obviously they were the dominant team in Contender, and they have every reason to be a very dominant team in Challenger. How do you feel about it?
I don't think it's really much of a difference, to be honest with you. It's the same kind of thing, different league. There's maybe a bit of a feeling that the opposition's a bit more competitive in Challenger to what it was in Contender for the most part, but I don't really see it that way. I think the main difference, I think, is just the lack of variety from the one region to the next one, because it's like Challenger, there is only, like, you can count the teams and leagues on your hand, whereas in Contender, it's very much now the everything else category, even more so this year now. They're only further enhancing that element of it, aren't they? So I think there's just that, Berard, the random Berardi and Shaqiri factors, don't really come into your play as much anymore. Yeah. So it puts more reliance on the league or the club that you're stacking into. So I'm not too sure it's like, I don't think anything's got any worse, but I don't think it's all going to be the Celtic show like people think it will be.
Okay.
I think we'll still do great and all the rest. I'll be jumping into the cards, don't get me wrong. But yeah, I think the other leagues that are involved still have handy teams in them. And it might just be more like the fixture sensitivity, because Celtic play at quite different times to maybe like Denmark and Portugal and whatever. Maybe it just feels that way at times, perhaps. But I don't think it's a huge change in the things, really, anything. I like the classic change for the most part, because it's just All-Stars is kind of back to square one, isn't it? Anything goes. Play your favourite 5, favourite 7. But yeah, there's happy enough with it. Some people seem really happy with it, but I was just like, okay, it's fine.
Andreas, Berardi's still in the mix because Serie A Classic is in Challenger.
Of course. Challenger?
In season.
Contender?
In season Challenger.
Is it Challenger? I thought it was Contender.
Serie A is in. Yeah, I thought it was in. I think you could use Classic. Obviously, all Serie A is Classic. I think it's in season Challenger.
I thought it was Contender. That's why I said the everything else category. Somebody need to fact check us on that.
I was going to say, let me look. I was pretty sure. Let me see.
Ben Negren is going to be amazing at Celtic, by the way.
Yeah, you can use your classic Serie A cards in season Challenger.
Ooh. Nice. I don't know why I thought it was Contender.
Berardi, the Celtic forward you never knew you had.
Yeah, that's it. The dream continues.
Well, thank you everybody for coming. If you could please like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Shout out to this guy right here. How about that?
Right.
Head over to Quinny 3001. Become a member of that channel. Well worth. Really, it should be a lot more money, but whatever. We can discuss that. And if you're really in the mindset of spending money, patreon.com/Andrew M. Laird to join my community as well. Thank you to MFL for sponsoring this show. Like I said, season 6, 2 games left. Well, one is today, Monday. So maybe you're watching this after and it's already over. I don't know. But anyway, if you're interested in the best football management game I've played, check it out. Link in the description below. Quinny, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for coming on. And to everyone else, it's Quinny. Well, as you can see how vibrant and healthy Quinny looks, please make sure you get outside.
Hey.